Okay, welcome to another Tezlom Podcast. This one, I'm going to lie to you, it might feel a little bit rushed. It's because this guest has flown in specially just to see me all the way from Arizona.
It's true. It's true.
Would you do me a favour, please introduce everyone and just tell us a bit about why you're in the franchise industry, what you do, please?
Why I'm in the franchising and what I do. Okay, so long story short, I started my career in public accounting. So I was an accountant. I went to school to be an accountant, and I was doing audits and taxes. And 2 years in, I kind of thought, I don't really love this. Mm. And that always kind of takes you back a little bit when you realize you put so much schooling and effort into something. And so I kind of...
Can I just stop you there?
Yeah.
With accounting, why did you pick that? Are you quite academic?
Great question. No. So I did not know what I wanted to do. I kind of had this kind of thought about progressing a career, knew I needed an education, had a brother who was very successful, really, really just gifted in that kind of genre in accounting. Yeah. And he said, hey, listen, if you're trying to learn business, I think this is a really good background to have because you understand the language of business. Yeah, 100%. So kind of with that philosophy, I said, okay, I'll continue to go with this. At one point, I thought I wanted to go to law school. And then got into public accounting and realized I worked with a lot of attorneys. I definitely didn't like what they did and didn't particularly love what I did. And so long story short is I met a gentleman who worked for what they call in the U.S., they call it the Big Four. Like there's four really large accounting firms. And he had just left. And I said, hey, listen, you left accounting. What are you doing now? What did you like or not like about it? That led to another conversation where he offered me a job at ProfitKeeper. So it was a startup then. I was basically one of the first employees. Nice. And we had 2 brands. And since then, we've grown to over 200 brands that we serve, almost 50,000 users now. So it's grown quite a bit. It's a really fun journey.
How long ago was that, Kyle? How long ago?
I probably... I would say 18 years ago.
Wow.
18 years ago. Yeah.
No way.
I know. And then along that journey, I realized, I always told my family, I said, there's no way I ever go into franchising. I've seen the struggles firsthand. I've worked with a lot of franchisees. Yeah. And so basically, eventually though, I reneged on that because I found a brand that I partnered up with and now I'm a franchisee as well. The brand's called Primrose. Basically, we take care of a couple hundred, really small kids, which is awesome. I love it, what it does for the community. I love seeing the kids when I go in for lunch. It's like the best feeling in the world. So now I'm involved as a franchisee, and I live that world, and I understand what that's like. Yeah. But then I serve franchisors and franchisees at ProfitKeeper. So I kind of see both ends of that spectrum.
Yeah, mate, it's a real good aspect to it. Do you think, because I know you're quite successful, we'll get into that in a little bit. Do you think your accountancy background is a key part of that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And again, no one's the same, right? You have different talents, you have different skills. Some people love to stay with accounting. It just wasn't my thing. In fact, even when I was at my accounting firm, I was trying to bring in business for the firm to make them more money. And I kind of saw early on, business development was one of my passions. But yeah, if I get into a conversation with a franchisee, every franchisee I know is in the business to take care of their families, to take care of themselves, to make money. They took huge risks a lot of times. They took out debt sometimes. And so helping them kind of align their ambitions with the financial side of things is something that I've always loved to do because I understand the financials. I understand the mechanics behind it, what drives it. And so that conversation is super helpful, especially as it kind of relates to our software and what it does.
Can I get straight into it then?
Yeah.
Right. So
absolutely.
You've met my mum downstairs and she does the finance side of it, and I understand how to look at a set of accounts, and I can get my accountant to talk me through it. Yeah. But I always think going through a set of accounts is the killjoy of business development. Yeah. The mindset of it. Yeah. How do you explain that to a franchise?
How do I help a franchisee?
Because if you're telling a franchisee you're not doing enough work and you're losing money, and this is how do you go from delivering this black and white horrible piece of paper to building them back up, encouraging them, and getting them to go out the door with
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think the way that I think about it, again, I'm going to bring up a term I call drift. And so what happens with franchisees and business owners in general, get outside of franchising, they are talented, they work really, really hard, but sometimes their work is not aligned with the right outcomes, or at least the outcomes that they want. And I call it drift. So they feel like they're busy, they feel like they're working hard, and that psychologically feels really good to work hard. Like it feels good to us. But the reality is a lot of times they're working hard in the wrong things. They're working things that aren't effective, and they're working at things that aren't bringing them the outcomes that they need to like achieve. And so because of that, I bring in the concept of financials. And I say, listen, like, unless I'm wrong, like, it could be your passion, I get it. Yeah. But you also want to make money. You also want to provide like good things for yourself and your family. So because of that, you bring it back to the financials and you say, okay, if you're not intentionally looking at your financials at least once a month, then basically you are leaving money on the table. And no one likes that feeling, right? And so then what we go into is just practical or pragmatic ways that they can look at their financials. It is really hard to look at like a spreadsheet. Yeah. And just say, okay, what is this telling me? You know? And so what I do is I go in and say, listen, we don't have to look at the 100 things on this financial every month. I can show you a handful that you just need to keep a gauge on to make sure that that's in line or it's growing in the right direction, or if there's a loss that you understand that so you can get on that right away from a management perspective. And then I guarantee you, if you do that, you will be making more money by the end of the year. Guarantee you. People, and it's understandable. My school, 200 kids, we had 0 when we started. Yeah, that's quite a feeling. And and I don't know how to convert all the metrics in from the US to UK, but it's like 10,000 square feet. It's on 2 acres of land. Big schools, took a lot of debt to get in. And so I just see this loss every single month as we're building the school. And it's hard to sleep sometimes at night. And sometimes you don't even want to look at the financials.
You led straight into this. We had this conversation when we had for something to eat, actually. I think it was Olympia. But how? So you must live in unless you're going to tell me different, you must live in a parallel world sometimes with your ProfitKeeper hat on. Yep. This is what it looks like. This is what you can do. And then you're living in your school head.
Oh, guarantee you.
And you're like, fucking hell, this is too hard. They're leaving. This has gone wrong. That's not gone to plan. Yeah. And you've got to try and think, well, let me look at the figures. Oh, fucking hell, I can't do that right now because my emotions are here. Yep. And I agree.
I empathize with that feeling. In fact, one of the things that I say often is, hey, listen, try to get your books done on a monthly basis so you have some sort of a basis to say, like, the worst thing in the world that you do as a franchisee, and I get it, is you look at your bank account and you say, I'm doing well or I'm not doing well based on what's in my bank account. The problem with that is that there's no opportunity there when you look in your bank account. Like, when you look at financials, you see the opportunity, you see the problems. But to your point, I tell everybody, you got to do your books on a monthly basis. It's like 2 months and I'm like, crap, I haven't done my books. It's like 10 or 11 at night. Yeah. I've been to soccer games, football games, soccer games. I've been to sports with my kids. And it's like, I have no energy for this. So you push it off till the weekend. Well, the weekend comes and you want to do what you want to do on the weekend. And then you push it again. So yes, I completely understand.
It's one of them things.
I understand that's the problem.
Yeah, but what you're trying to do is say, look, this is what your bare minimum should be.
Yes.
There's got to be some flex.
Yep.
But if you did this, perfect.
Yeah, but by the way, I took care of that. Like, even though that's my background, and I said I should be doing it, I can easily do it. I shouldn't spend the money on a bookkeeper, a CPA, or a chartered accountant for that.
Yeah.
In the end, I did. Yeah. Because I said it's not working.
The thing is, you're not the accountant anymore. You're the business owner.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I need to, again, spend time on what I'm doing to provide outcomes. So I always draw to, like, what are the outcomes you're trying to achieve? And then you align with that. And then, the drift happens when you're never thinking, you're not intentional about your days. And you just drift from one day to another, one fire to the next fire to the next fire. And that's easy to do. But if you're not intentional about your days, then the drift happens and you're not achieving what you want.
Amazing.
Yeah.
There's a couple more questions I want to ask you about the school, but I want to talk about something else that just jumped into me. So I'm really selfish with this podcast.
Yeah.
You want to watch
we can go any way you want.
Yeah. So situation, you're married, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
kids early.
Yeah. So how did you ProfitKeeper from university?
Yep.
So how old would you be
then? Public accounting for a few years.
Okay, different firms.
And then went into ProfitKeeper and had been there 18.
So what age did you go to ProfitKeeper?
That's a good question. I don't even remember. Late
20s?
I don't even remember. Yes, I would say late 20s.
25.
Yes, correct.
And then what point did... What I'm trying to get to is the decision to lend a lot of money and buy that school.
Oh, great question.
And
great question.
With being an accountancy background,
right?
Being a married man, probably with children, How did you go from this logical black and white piece of paper, to going fuck it?
Yeah. No, that's a fantastic question, and this can be different for everybody.
Yeah,
right?
Of course it is.
Kyle McEuen. Here's how it happened. Have you ever heard the term? I don't know. I've heard the term once. You never do lunch alone, right? So you go to lunch and you network with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Well, one of them that I really, really respect is my brother, who I've just kind of seen his career path.
Is he a bit older than you?
He is. He's 7 years older than me. So a lot of just advice, just he's really good about giving me his time. So we're eating lunch one day, and he's opened to me up about how important learning is. Because we live in the most technologically advanced, fastest paced world that like the world has ever seen, right? Things change quickly. What worked yesterday might not work for today. What worked last year might not work today. So he was reiterating, by this time I already got a master's. So I've had an undergraduate in accountancy. I had a master's in like an MBA from the University of Arizona. And so I felt like, hey, I'm doing my part learning, but it had been probably 5 or 6 years since I was done with my master's. And he introduced me to this course called AGI, and basically it's a professional business course. It's a business philosophy course, and that launched me into spending quite a bit of money to go out to Silicon Valley, which is in the San Jose area, 4 times a year, meeting with some really, really accomplished individuals that were after certain outcomes in their lives. And it has created all the difference in the world to me. So that got my thinking my thinking started changing a little bit. And one of the first things that they had me do, and I'd never considered this before, is they said, how much does it take to retire? And at that point, embarrassingly enough, I was like, I don't know. I've just been putting my head down. I knew I wanted to go up the career ladder. I knew I wanted to start here, but I was already president of my company. I felt like I was achieving things. But I was like, I don't know how much it takes to acquire. My brother basically put it like this. All right, so you want to retire at 65, right? So you're going to live for 30 years after you're 65 or longer, because people are living longer and longer. And how much money does that take for you to live? I'm like, I haven't done the math. I don't know. He goes, let me help you do the math. So we did the math, and I was like, are you kidding me? That is such a big number. I can't even comprehend it. It's a huge number. And so there's certain things that they have you do. But after that, it basically transformed how I looked at what I was trying to accomplish. So now I look at my world as I'm trying to make enough to earn 2 livings. 1, to take care of myself and my family, but then 2, to take care of 30 plus years of old age and retirement. Having dignity, so I'm not asking my kids to take care of me and live with them, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So then after you realize that, you're like, okay, what am I going to do about this? So I happened to be playing basketball one morning in San Jose, and a gentleman and I were talking on the way back before our classes started, and he was like, hey, I'm in franchising. And I'm like, oh, I'm in franchising too. What do you do? He's like, well, I work with a brand called Primrose. We do early education and daycare for youth. And that got me into a path of that's interesting. I love what that does for the community. We talked 2 years. I did research. I did research on the brand. I did everything about how much money you would potentially make. And that got me into my first location as a Primrose a couple years later for that express purpose. So the risk was completely aligned with what I was trying to accomplish. So that's why I did it. And then since then, we've become a multi-unit franchisee, and we're trying to open up another one right now. So yeah.
Was there a tipping point then? Because you did, that's quite, what's the right word? Logical, isn't it? It's a logical way of doing it, isn't it? It's quite, you've not done it with your heart, have you really? Well, what I'm trying to say is, was there a tipping point where your heart got involved and was like, oh yeah, I love this because of this, and I'm going to make it work? Yeah, no, it had to align. So let me make sure I state that clearly. I would not have considered doing anything unless I loved what it did for the community, unless I loved like the service it provided. Like, parents need this service. More and more and more and more, there's two parents working, and they need this service. They need a safe place. They need a place where these children are educated. And so I did the research for 2 years on the curriculum. And Primrose in the U.S. is considered the top, right? It's considered the most premium. The curriculum is the best. They're advanced by the time they graduate, and they're going on to their other schools. So no, I'm passionate about what we do. I feel so good about it. I love that. And I couldn't have done something like this unless I had that. Yeah, that's the bit. Unless that was lined up. And that's why I always struggle with that bit, isn't it? Because there has to be like a logical side. It has to be. But then it also has to be really heart side. Right. And then to be as successful as you, I think it's got to be all heart sometimes. I feel like sometimes it's got to be like completely passionate. 100%. You've got to forget about some of this logical stuff. I've got to you've got to lead with your heart, haven't you? Yeah. I completely agree. If I was passionate about accounting, maybe I would still be in it, but I wasn't. It wasn't going to work unless I was passionate about it. I wasn't going to put in the effort unless I'm passionate about it. But that being said, I also have this flip side of like, you can't always be all passion either. Because then it's a hobby, right? And then you're not intentional about it, and you're not trying to create outcomes. Yeah, and that's where KPIs come into place and all. It's about outcomes. Ultimately, it's about outcomes, right? Like you're in it, you need to be passionate about it. But if you're not producing good things, then you need to reassess. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. So at this point, when you met this guy playing basketball, and you're working for ProfitKeeper, and your wife was doing what? Oh, she was staying at home. Like, she had never worked before in her like in our marriage. She had stayed home up to this point with the kids, right? So, now she did, though. Let me just say this: she did have like an in-home daycare for a little bit, whereas in the neighborhood we had some kids come over, and so she did that for a bit, and so that's also what started her passion on that side. That's what I'm trying to get to, because what I'm trying to get to is, families don't make those type of decisions. Oh, no. Without some sort of conversation between them two. Oh, no. I don't think you went out with your switch card one day and just came back and guess what I've done after 2 years? I've decided to get this. Yeah. There must have been a conversation. It wouldn't have happened. Yeah. Unless I could get my wife, because the structure is, I focus almost solely on ProfitKeeper. So I had this great idea, right? Hey, I've got this great idea. We should do this. And then it progresses into 1,000 other conversations on what does that actually mean for your family, right? What impact does that have? Yeah. Like, you've been home with the kids. Now, what does that mean on the kids? Like, for their start. Now, fortunately, our kids were getting a little bit older. So that was a little bit easier. But one of the greatest things that I had, like my secret weapon, was like my wife. Like, I knew that even if people on the outside were going to look at her like, well, she hasn't worked in so many years. I'm like, no. You don't understand. Like, she's a rock star, and she will run this thing. She will exceed everybody's expectations. And I always knew that in my heart. And as we progressed, we had an investor, and we since bought him out. But one of the first things that he did, he said, listen, I don't know. Like, he tried to put it nicely, but I'm not sure she's the right person to run this. I said, listen, I understand why you're saying that. Give it some time. And fast forward now, we have one of the top schools. I think we're top 5% in revenue out of 550 brands. We're the best school in our state. We have a waiting list like crazy, but it's because of her. Like at the end of the day, I'm the nighttime CFO. I'm like an advisor. I try to help when I can, but it's all her. Amazing. And so that's kind of the key to success too, to have that spouse in that situation. Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to. And then the next piece is what is because I've been there and done it myself, is how do you cope as a family or not cope sometimes, or maybe you do cope and you just don't cope. Being a family, having a business, having.
Oh my gosh, it turned our world upside down. Because what's important for me is to be dignified and honest and have integrity with my job. So ProfitKeeper is my role. So I, at all costs, that's my role. That's my first priority, right?
You've been there a long time. It's passionate.
Right. Yeah. And we've been growing it. We grew 400% last year, which is crazy.
You want to see it through, don't you?
Yeah.
You need to get sick of it,
Absolutely.
don't you? You need to see it through, don't you?
I love what I do, right?
Yeah.
So then I kind of try to give as much time as I can to my wife. And I think one of our first problems that we had was, hey, I thought you were going to be able to help me out a little bit more. And that was a serious, that was intense, because that kind of epiphany was a little bit scary, because I'm like, you're right. I'm kind of disappointing you a little bit, that I'm not helping more. And that put an immense amount of stress on her, which was hard to see because she's not used to that, right? And then you have the kids things, and our kids are, oh my gosh, they're active. We are in a million sports, a million activities. So as soon as the day ends, it's just booked until 9 o'clock at night with other things. So we had to work through that. And there was I call it different structures. One structure that worked previously was not going to work now. And so we had to completely change that, and we're still tweaking it.
Well, it's having the ability to have that conversation, isn't it? That's the thing. That's the key, isn't it? Is not if you don't have the conversation, it builds up. Yeah, it's just within 3 weeks it's fucked.
And it did build. It
will do, of course it will.
And then finally it came out, and we're dealing with it, right? Listen, you're not helping me. It was all a little I felt it was all on me, and I was like,
but I had it with my missus. It was I was we're rugby club on a Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, and I was like, this is great, and the kids are great, but I've had a monster week and I've been away. This was my downtime. This was my absolute downtime, and I understand that, but I've got to be a little bit selfish here. And that took a few weeks to build up, and I was like, I can't fucking stand here doing this anymore. Yeah. I'm not going to stand here doing it. I understand why we do it. Yeah. And I know the kids really enjoy it, but the detrimental effect it's having on me will eventually have a detrimental effect on the family. Can we find a new way? Yeah. And now they have taekwondo at a different time and do something different.
Yeah, I love that.
So I think it's having them open and honest conversations as early as possible as you can have them without trying to have an argument and just say, look, I don't want this to be an argument, but this isn't gelling.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think for us, the way that I think about it is there's just fundamental human concerns. We got to take care of our bodies. Yeah. If our body breaks down, we're not good at work, right? Yeah. We got to take care of our family. If our family situation is not right, then we're not good at work. Yeah. But we have to be able to take care of work, or else we can't take care of our family. Yeah. So there's a lot of fundamental concerns that we have to take care of, and it's all this constant balance. So for us, it was this practical kind of situation of okay, the house isn't getting cleaned. We don't love coming home to a crazy, dirty house. So we spent money on a housekeeper, right? Different things. We didn't want to do that per se, but there were certain things that were important to us that we just had to change the structure to make it work. Yeah. And I'd still say maybe we're not all the way there yet. And I can only imagine we get our third.
It's going to change, isn't it?
It's going to change again.
It's a consistently moving feast.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's just having that ability to be able to have them conversations. And I think it's so important. And I think if you do have a partner and they are involved in the business, it's important that you have that open communication all the time and accept there's going to be changes from both ends all the time, because otherwise it doesn't work. Yeah. Because if you had a missus who complained about that, and it's tough. Well, I understand I know what you're saying. It's almost like you need to say, look, this is a problem, but this is a solution. This is what do you think? Not this is a problem. I'm going to consistently moan about it, and it's going to break down. It's finding a solution immediately, isn't it? Or just having, can we fix this? And that's
I completely agree. Or else you're going to take that to work again. Yeah. And I say this lovingly, but I learned early on with my wife. I had all these great ideas, right? Yeah. And my wife would be like, yeah, don't tell me what to do. and so I'm like, got it. And again, she's just thrived in the business. And so now it's a situation where I'm like, I'll try to be helpful when I can, but she's just running with it. Amazing. And she has, and she's in this same kind of business philosophy class that I'm in. Yeah. We have calls every Tuesday night. We're always really tired, 9 p.m., but we're on an hour call. and we try to apply that philosophy every day, every week in our business, and we feel like it's produced really good outcomes. So we're in it together, so that's helped.
Yeah.
But that just balance of like, okay, when you need me, like, I'll help.
Yeah.
But one of the worst things that I can do is make a commitment to her and then not come through.
Yeah,
that's not good at all.
Yeah.
That doesn't
You're
help
better
her.
off just saying the conversation is, look,
I've had to learn because I'm kind of like a little bit of a pleaser, like where I want to like.
Well, you got the husband.
I say the things like I want to help, right?
Yeah, but you're doing the husband part then, aren't you? You're not doing the business part, aren't you? You're doing
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a good point. That's a part of the structure that I'm like, okay, I might not be able to help there, but you know what? I'll pick the kids up from school.
Yeah. I'll make sure.
And I'll take them here. I'll take them. I'll make sure they get fed and things like that.
It's just interesting questions.
And it's life.
Yeah, it's just life, isn't it?
It's life.
And accepting that you're going to work together through it. Okay, so then where do I want to go with this? So the other part is you and your wife discovery of managing people and leadership.
Yeah.
You must have some interesting conversations on a Sunday morning together in bed and stuff, like about work and
there's never
leadership and people and stuff.
Yeah, the hardest thing about like working now in the business together is like every conversation is geared towards business, and it's almost like you have to stop yourself sometimes.
Me and my mum exactly the same,
right? But people is always the main conversation.
Yeah.
It's always, I know that at ProfitKeeper, I constantly think about the people who report to me and what will keep them motivated and what will keep them progressing and satisfied with their careers. I mean, I'm constantly thinking about that. But it's no different at Primrose with our school. We have 45 teachers per school. And it's like every one of them has a situation. They have families, they have school that they're going to. And sometimes it's hard because some of our like younger employees too, they don't have a lot of life experience. And so you're kind of almost playing this parenting role sometimes a little bit when they come into your office.
Coach them how to even have a job.
Exactly, because
that's the thing that we talked. Do you remember the conversation?
You're hitting it. Oh my gosh!
Do you remember the conversation?
Yes.
Now, it's almost when you take someone on new, even though they're a qualified teacher, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's just coaching them how to have a job.
Yes.
In a
how
nice,
to be reliable.
Yeah, in a nice way. Yes. So we do it here. I take someone on who's obviously been brought up really well, can answer the phone, look the part, all that sort of thing. But mum and dad didn't teach them how to have a job.
Right.
And that's the bit that's the mad bit that you don't realise is that you're teaching them how to answer the phone, teaching them how to create relationships with clients, but then also turn up on time. This is how you operate. You do this, you don't do this. This is what you say. This is what you don't do. This is how you cope with stress.
Yep.
This is how you cope with, colleagues.
Yes.
All them bits and pieces as well as just the bit.
I agree with where you're going with that, because one of the things that I have like started to understand is I'm getting older, I'm getting some gray hair, and now I look back and I thought I could communicate well with the younger generation. And now I'm realizing like there's some significant gaps sometimes in how I say things and how they're perceived. Yeah. And so a good conversation is like even with my wife, she'll come in and she's like, listen, I had this conversation with this employee in the office. I observed this. I wanted to offer some quote unquote loving guidance. Like, hey, here's what you're doing well, but I'm seeing these things in the classroom. The curriculum's not being implemented the way that it should be. Let's talk about that. Let's give you some ideas. And she thinks like when that person leaves the office, like, hey, that went pretty well. And then we just find out that person just thought that they were the worst person in the world because there was some correction and they didn't take it well. And then it comes around on an employee review, like things like that. Like we're constantly like, okay, how can we communicate this better? How can we communicate the why better? But it is a challenge. Like we do find it as a challenge sometimes. So we're definitely have some work to do.
Is there anything that you and your wife do together to relieve the stress and chat about? Is there anything you do differently? Because you've got the boss badges, you've got the mum and dad badges. Yeah. Do you ever do anything? Kyle and what's your wife's name?
Kate.
Kyle and Kate.
So I think for us, that's a really good question. So probably we can improve on this, right?
It's tough on that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've been there, that's why.
I mean, because I'm on this podcast, I'm like, no one should think that I have the answer here.
No. It's interesting because you're living and breathing it, aren't you? It'd be interesting to get Kate on and ask the same question, isn't it?
Oh my gosh.
It's such a tough question, isn't it, running a business and doing what you're doing?
I'd love to hear her answer. I think in the conversations that we've had, I think what we've identified is we've never been busier in life before because basically we've got both ends of the spectrum. Kids are just in that stage of life where life is busy.
Yeah.
So for us, it's like, hey, let's take once a week by ourselves and now, are we always, do we always accomplish that? No. But we're trying to take once a week where we can just have some time, and then we have to be careful about, like, again, that conversation sometimes can go right into business, which often it does. And so just to kind of spend that time.
Yeah, it's the way me and mum, because I'll take some stress off, just say, so me and mum cope with it that way. Is we'll allow a bit of time sometimes and just take the pressure off and say, we're going to talk about work, and we're going to talk about work for a while until we bottom it out, but then we're going to shelve it.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that helps. Like, so for instance, I think it was Friday night, I talked to mum quite a lot. Friday night was tough in the business. Something happened in the business. It was a really tough day. And we bottomed it out Friday night. And then, when you need to put it away, leave it. So the whole weekend went on, and then I got home late last night and ended up sitting on the couch from about 10 till about 12:30, just revisiting it again. Yeah. So we both had time to think. And me and mum often say to each other, let's not talk about it, let's just think.
Yeah.
It's not like you cannot talk about it at all, because it might blip up in a conversation as the day's going on. You can't be that regimented. But like, you have a conversation, go, let's think about that, let's come back. Because if you're not agreeing, it's not working, or it feels too much, and then come back to it. And that's what we kind of did. We had a big conversation Friday. There was a lot of emotion around it and heat. Yeah. And then we didn't talk about it all weekend. I seen it at the weekend. So, we just didn't talk about that topic. And we were fine, and we had tea and all that sort of stuff, and we had a laugh and all that. But then I was like, can we just revisit this? Talked about it for 2 hours and then came back into work.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I love that. I love that. I love that concept of thinking about it. Yeah. I think for me, again, just your human nature, Kyle McEuen, once again, I hate like spaces of conversation where I just want to fill it sometimes. Yeah. And so my mind goes so fast sometimes that words will come out in conversations. And I think that if you can be, more intentional about like just thinking about it, like taking some time, I love that strategy, and then coming back to it. Cause I know I've done this many times. I've been in an intense conversation, whether it's my wife or someone else. I've sat on it for a day, and then I'm like, I thought more about that. And then I offer up something else, right? I either acquiesce, or I understand, like I can articulate maybe a little bit better what I was trying to say, that in the moment, I was just coming out of my mouth.
That's what I mean. Sometimes
I like that idea.
Yeah. So me and mum always talk about sleeping on it. Just sleep on it.
Yeah.
Just sleep. Even if, and it frustrates me, Kyle, even more sometimes, because I'm very much like you. I just want to fucking sort it.
Yeah.
But even if when I'm in that mindset, now I say it. Now I'm like, nah, it doesn't need sleeping on. I'm like, sleep on it. And you know what? Most of the time I have to change what I do.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know why, but like, again, I talk about fundamental concern for your body. Late at night when I'm tired or I'm hungry or whatever, if my body's not aligned for that conversation, it's probably not effective anyway.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's just better, like, get a good night's sleep.
Yeah, work on it tomorrow.
Yeah, be refreshed, be ready to talk about it tomorrow,
Last piece, because I've chucked you into this podcast, but it's been good, mate, to talk about it. Is there anything that you do? Do you exercise?
Absolutely.
What's the kind of go-to?
Yeah, I call it my ADD medicine.
What's that mean?
Running.
ADD medicine. What's ADD?
Anti-deficit attention.
Attention deficit disorder.
Yes, exactly. Attention deficit disorder. My mind goes really fast. I'm thinking about a lot of things constantly. For me, I start every day typically with a run or exercise. That's like really important to me. And what I'll do is I'll stretch, and I stretch for like almost an hour.
Do you really?
Because then it gives me time to read, to kind of meditate a little bit, like do the things that I want to do while I'm stretching. And then I'll go and I'll exercise.
What time do you get up?
Typically 5 a.m. Lately it's been a little bit later because sometimes I work out at the end of the day, and then that kind of affects the beginning of the morning.
Swap it around,
but if I had my preference, it's always 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it's a good space time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Me and Kay got about time.
By the way, I saw that you ran a 10K.
Yeah, I've done loads of 10K.
Yeah.
the thing with the special part of that is, obviously I told you before that I'm getting separated from my wife at the minute, and it's quite a challenging time. And if you've never done it, don't do it. It's horrendous. But so I suffer quite badly with anxiety. You've seen me talk, and you've seen what state I was like. And going through that anxiety piece of going new places, meeting new people, big crowds, I really struggle. Like so I was driving up the M6, which is the major motorway in England, and I was near Preston, and I was like, I'm going to go to the hospital because I'm actually in such a bad state. Mm-hmm. I think I'm going to have to go to A&E.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just slowed straight down. I was trying to catch my breath. I opened the windows. I put some music on. I stopped at the services, got some food. I had a minute. I had a water on the car park. Went to the toilet. I was in a state.
Yeah.
And it was. I'm talking like a man's hands inside you, crippling anxiety about it. So the 10K I can do.
Yeah.
I can fucking do 10K right now. I'm going to do half a marathon right now.
Yeah.
Running in mud and water and mountains, I can do. I climb loads of mountains. It was the whole piece of learning to be on my own, which is difficult after you've been in a 16-year relationship. And it's not just that, it's having no one to be there for you. And I had bad anxiety anyway, so Charlene would look after me in them situations, and she's not there now. Yeah. So that whole piece of learning that on your own, meeting a new bunch of people, and then doing it. So the whole emotional journey, the 10K was that.
Yeah, small part of it.
Small part of it. The most part of it was the 2-hour drive to the journey.
Overcoming that.
Overcoming it. So that's why it was so pertinent, that piece of work, because it was my first trail run, which is like running the mountains.
Right.
But I'm physical enough to do that. I'm strong enough to do that. That wasn't the thing. It was more the going on your own, doing it on your own, coming back on your own, and going for that whole piece of work.
That's really great.
Yeah.
I was on a long train trip recently, in fact last week, and I was talking with an individual who kind of struggles with some anxiety. And he said that for him, one of the best things and you're really good at this, Ryan. Like from the moment I met you, you can kind of get a sense of like a person a little bit, and you're really open and good about acknowledging, your feelings, which is, I think, quite uncommon for a lot of people. I know for me, like I probably struggle with that a lot. And so I think there's something my friend was saying just about acknowledging, like, hey, I've got this, I deal with this, right?
Yeah.
And that acknowledgement, and then speaking that to other people so they understand it, so you can kind of talk about it a little bit. I think that's huge.
They call it a toolbox, that, Kyle. So having a toolbox of people, like it's almost like you have a toolbox with you.
Yeah.
And I when I'm going through whatever, I'll just open a toolbox and go, right, okay.
Yeah.
What do I usually get? I know like 2-litre bottle of water, so I'll specifically go to a garage and buy a 2-litre bottle, not a 1.5, not a 1, a 2-litre bottle. It's that psychological shift of, right, I'm going to start fixing myself now.
Correct.
And it's like, pick the bottle up, drink it. I mean, I'd be crying my eyes out. I could be in a fucking state, shaking and whatever, start drinking the water. Okay, we're getting here. And it's that piece of work. And Kay's like one of my number ones. So I'll ring Kay. Kay's had it everything off me.
Yeah.
More than a girlfriend would or a wife. Like she's had it all. And then I've got another few people, and then my mom and a few other people that I kind of just, it's not a case of
love that.
It's just a case of offloading that current state of mind.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily need advice or anything like that. It's just kind of having to, I call it like an anchor, almost an anchor of someone to just remind you that you're back in the real world again.
Yeah.
And this is okay. And
there's two things that you trigger me right now with what you just said. One is, I think when you speak it into existence, what you probably don't know is that there are others that might be suffering from that same thing, but they don't, maybe it's bottled up. Yeah. They don't know how to deal with it. And then they hear that someone that they admire is dealing with that, or they look up to, or as a friend. And then all of a sudden it just feels more bearable because someone else is going through that. And then there's that empathy piece. So number one, you can help other people by doing that. But the other thing is talking about just kind of like how you deal with it or cope with it. It was a while ago, but I was like a youth group advisor. Like I was just asked to help with a like 14 to 16 year olds. And I get a call one day, and the parents are like, hey, our son is struggling with a bit of an addiction. And we scheduled a meeting with the psychologist. Could you come and be there as a support system? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So I like lunch work that day. I drive down and I'm with the family, just kind of being there for support, not offering much. But it was really interesting to hear the psychologist say, when you are struggling with something like that, and you're at the point where it seems unbearable, the first thing that you do, or that is a tool, is to reach out to someone that you love, because that feeling is so powerful, or that you trust or whatever, that can actually mitigate that. Yeah. And so you reaching out to Kay or a friend, literally what that's doing, it's almost like medicine. It's helping with that situation.
It's a massive one, that. It's an unusual piece of work. But that's... So back to the 10K, it's interesting you do running, and so you get up in the morning, do some stretching, bit of music on, reading or whatever. And
ran this morning in the rain. I thought I live in the desert. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to run in the rain. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to run in the rain. It's great.
It's amazing. I love running in the rain. But so then
it's a misty rain here. It's like a different rain.
Yeah, it gets you really wet, they call it.
It's like in Arizona, we have like by our pools, we have what they call a mister. So it sprays out a mist of water so you can stay cool, because it's 100. It's like really hot. And I feel like that's just what's around here. It's just a constant mister. But it's kind of fun.
I went to, I can't remember where it was. I went in Arizona, but I spent quite a lot of time in Arizona. I think we went 3 weeks holiday there when I was younger. I was about 15 or something like that.
And what time of the year was it?
It was boiling hot.
Oh, summer. Okay.
Boiling hot.
Yeah, 3 months. It's going to be hard.
Yeah, it was boiling. What's her name now? There's a girl called, she might go mad because she's called Nicola Peterson, was the girl that I got talking to. I ended up kissing her when I was about 15.
You always remember that.
Yeah, you always remember the girls, don't you? Still got her on Facebook, Nicola.
AZ.
Yeah. But, and my brother, he made friends with two lads who's about the same age as him, and called Dusty and Brad. Yeah. And they were driving a big truck with a gun on the back and the horns on.
That's a big deal. In Arizona, trucks are a big deal.
Yeah. And then my dad bought the hat and the boots, and mum bought
Okay, I don't wear a cowboy hat, but just hats and boots. I mean, there's so much open land and mountains.
Yeah, it's amazing. We went off somewhere. My dad got arrested because you're not supposed to drive off the dirt track or whatever. Yeah, it was a long time.
Sounds like a pretty amazing trip.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was. We went to Vegas and we did everything else. And yeah.
By the way, Vegas probably isn't the best representation of the U.S.
No, it's
just
not.
So you know.
Yeah, we only did 3 days there, and we were kids as well. So
I'm laughing.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, are you coming? And we're on the podcast. So are you committing to come to IFA next year?
Yeah, I spoke to Mum. I said I'm going to come next year.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll come.
I'll try to line you up if there's any other opportunities.
Yeah, it'd be nice, wouldn't it, if we could do that?
See if you can speak.
Yeah, that'd be ideal.
Yeah.
But we'll get there. I'll be honest with you, mate. I think I've covered everything. I'm not actually looking at the clock, but it's worked out really well. That. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, it's a privilege. Like, it truly is. I love seeing what you guys are doing here. At Tezlom.
Me and you hit off since the second I met you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's nice to meet someone similar age bracket with family, trying to get through, create a business, create themselves a legacy. It's nice, isn't it, mate?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, franchising is a community.
Yeah.
And everybody makes everybody stronger, to be honest with you. Yeah. And so that's how I've always looked at it. So
iron sharpens iron.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what you do is so important anyway in society. Yeah. It's needed. I mean, there's the population is getting older and older and older, and so, what you do is amazing.
Tezlom's a beautiful little business. I love it very much. It sounds like the same with Primrose. It's nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, mate.
Yep.
That's it. It's done.
I've got a burning question. I'm really sorry I need to ask it.
Yeah, go on.
It's never happened.
Yeah, go for it.
What would you tell all the children, knowing what you know now from your life? What piece of advice would you make sure that they are taught, they learn, they know it, they can... What would that thing be? Sorry.
Wow. No, that's okay. It goes back to kind of our logic plus passion, right? What I would say is education is key, but be careful that common education brings, like I say this all the time, common brings common results. Uncommon brings uncommon results. So think about that and how you apply that in education, but also in work and everything like that. If I'm going to go to work and I'm going to be common, My superiors are going to view me as common. The market's going to view me as common, and I'm going to get priced accordingly, and I'm just common. But if I'm uncommonly good, like there's something different about Ryan, like there's something different about his business. He does things that not other people do. Guess what? You get uncommon results. You get uncommon pay. I think the same goes for education. Like you cannot just rely on just one-time education. No. It's a lifetime of learning. Like once you get done with education, you still have to learn. In our industry, we're still trying to learn how to effectively use AI, ChatGPT, all those things for like the betterment of the business. Well, that's more learning. Yeah. And so what I would tell, if I was telling kids, I'm like, it's a lifetime of learning. Yeah. Don't look at learning as a one-time checkbox. I went through, they call it primary school right here in the UK or whatever, high school, then uni. Like, don't look at that as just the checkbox. Like, even if it's not formal learning with a diploma, always be learning, I think is what I would say.
Yeah, I'd second that as well. What the beauty of being an adult is, though, as well, is you can learn about the things that you're super passionate about and learn about.
Absolutely.
And become a master at
100%. Like in the third industrial revolution, it was all about making machines that could produce things faster, right? Mm-hmm. Well, gone are the days that you could like physically do things faster to make more money. Like it's all with your mind now. Yeah. Like you're literally limited by how you think. Yeah, there's no limit. It's only how you think. So if you're constantly looking at the world and how could I do this or how could I do that or what could I learn? I mean, that's where the opportunities are endless. But that takes learning. Takes your mind.
Takes learning. It also takes massive amount of self-awareness, Kyle, doesn't it? Like you have to be self-aware of like your own limitations.
Yeah, you have to be out of drift.
Yeah.
You can't just go from one fire to the other and then one day bleeds into the next day and bleeds into the next day and then you look back and you're like, what just happened? What did I do? It has to be intentional. What am I after? What are the outcomes? And unfortunately, like then there's knowledge gaps. Like I know where I want to be, but how do I get there? Well, that's called a knowledge gap. Well, now you have to get the knowledge to understand how to get past that to get to where you want to go.
Or go and learn. Or
exactly.
We're doing something at the minute, and we're trying a new part of the business, and there's a knowledge gap there. So I've brought someone in. They're going to spend the afternoon here tomorrow afternoon. Yeah. And then there's one or two people think they know parts of it, but you know when yourself you think it's not enough. Yeah. It's not enough.
Absolutely.
What the information they've got isn't enough. So what I'm trying to do is I'm going to crack this walnut with a fucking sledgehammer, not just a normal hammer. So your knowledge is great, and I understand there's an appetite there. But I'm going to get someone in, I'm going to buy it, and then I'm going to fucking beat it to death.
Oh, absolutely. Because what's the ultimate proof of knowledge?
Someone who's done it.
Exactly. Yeah, you could say that you know it. Like I could read how to operate a ship, right? An airplane, right? I could read it and say, I've read it, and that makes sense. I understand it. But I don't know it until I can actually fly a plane, right? And so knowledge... The ultimate proof of knowledge is that you can do it. You can perform whatever that is. And that's why I call it, there's knowledge gaps everywhere. And we just have to be self-aware. I love that term, that we have a knowledge gap. So I don't know how to do that. Okay, that's a knowledge gap. Where do you get the knowledge? Do we rely on our networks? I don't need to know how all the ins and outs of being an attorney because I have someone in my network that can help me out with that. So it's networks and knowledge.
Have you got any more questions?
No, that was it.
Yeah.
Mate, thank you
Great
so
question.
much. Cheers.
Yeah. Done. Cheers.